Audacity. I do want to say that before we begin today's episode, we want to let our listeners know that we will be discussing some sensitive topics related to suicide and death. And so our goal, certainly with this conversation, is to bring awareness, to bring understanding and healing, but we also want to prioritize everyone's health and wellness. So please feel free to turn this off if this conversation is too hard. But welcome to another episode of Living with Audacity. I am your host, Aisha, and it is always a pleasure to be here. As you can see, I have another incredible guest with me. I feel like I'm on a roll. Okay, I am on a roll because, again, I said this last episode or however many episodes, the people in my life are phenomenal. So I'm going to do a formal introduction of my girl, Sasha, and we're going to get into a really powerful conversation around the audacity to grieve. Sasha, I want to welcome you to Living with Audacity.
Thank you, Aisha.
Thank you. Okay, so let me do a little intro first and just kind of set the context around what today's conversation is about. As we know, and I will speak for myself, grief is one of those things that we all experience at some point in time in our lives, some of us more than others. And I think why I'm really looking forward to this conversation is while I've offered the disclaimer around grief in this context around death, grief can be experienced in many different ways, right? Loss is not just related to death, but just loss of friendships, loss of things that we've desired in our life, loss of relationships. And so I think it's a really powerful conversation because, again, when we talk about living with audacity, it isn't just about all the highs and all the great things. It's also about the things in our life that we find challenging. And so I really want to thank you for being here. So let me do Sasha's bio because I'm eager to jump in. Sasha, who's also a really good friend of mine, is an author, a speaker, an advocate whose work gently reminds us that we don't have to rush our healing. As you can see before me, the author of 3 incredible books. Now, listen, it's one thing to write a book. It is another thing to do 3 books. So big shout out to Sash. But through her books, Riding the Waves, A Story of Friendship and Feelings, and her collaborative project, She Grieves, Sash creates, sorry, I'm going to call you Sash. Her name is Sasha, but I have to lovingly call you Sash, creates sacred space for honesty, hope, and the tender process of transformation. Beyond her writing, she serves as an executive assistant in healthcare, supporting leadership initiatives that uplift women and promote well-being in the workplace. But it's her heart work, her compassion, her authenticity, and her willingness to share her own story that truly makes her a light for others navigating loss. So I want you to grab another cup of tea, take a deep breath, and really get ready for what I will say will be a really powerful conversation around grief. So welcome to the podcast, Sash.
Thank you so much, Aish. And thank you for first and foremost for making space for this conversation. Because as we will talk about, it can make people uncomfortable and that needs to change.
Yes, it absolutely does. And I think, we'll get into my own kind of process when it comes to grief. What I will say is I have certainly through you learned that it is a wave, right? And one of the things that I really hope our listeners, particularly those that might be actively grieving and struggling right now, understand that grief is at their own pace. It is within their own space. And while I can appreciate that sometimes people around us want us to move through the process because they're uncomfortable with where someone is at, it really is up to them. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get into it because I have quite a few things that I want to tackle. And again, this is a free-flowing conversation. And again, I want to thank you for sharing your lived experience and your perspective in this. So the first question that we're going to talk about, and really to begin gently, is if you can share your story of loss or multiple losses and that have reshaped your life.
Sure. Yeah. So first, as Aisha said, I do come to this with my own experience. I'm not educated. I'm not a coach. I'm not trained as a professional in the grief space, but through conversations I've had with others and my own experience, this is all from my own learning, as are my books. So in 2013, my mom died. We were on a trip to Cuba together. When we came back the next day, she was on her way home and she died in a car accident. So I was 29 years old and suddenly my whole life changed. I had to figure this out now. And so, as life went on, I didn't know how I was going to survive it. Coming up to my 30th birthday, I was like, how am I going to do the next 30, however many years without my mom? Nobody was talking about it. People were afraid to bring it up. They didn't want me to get upset. Didn't want to remind me, which was always an interesting conversation. And I had to figure out how to sort of maneuver through and understand what's normal and what's not. And I felt like it was taking a long time. I had nobody to compare it to, I think. And then as I kind of started to get my groove and I had incredible support from my friends, my family, and my dad. My dad was my person. He was always my rock. I had such an incredible relationship with him. 6 years later, in 2018, he died. And he died by suicide. So I remember a moment at that time where I was like, okay, I've been through this. I know exactly how it's going to feel like. Everything will be the same. And it wasn't. It was so different. And so that was a whole new learning for me. There were layers. There was layers because of the suicide. There was layers because it was my second parent. Even at 35 years old, you're an orphan, right? So figuring that out. And then it changes family dynamics. It changes, relationship with friends. So there's a lot to go through. And with nobody talking about it, you don't know what's normal.
I love that. And I think, again, having been your friend under both situations, I think for me, right? So again, being on the outside and being a friend, I really appreciate that perspective, because I think those of us who are trying to support someone who is dealing with grief, not just with the loss of one parent, but then again, 6 years later, another parent. And it doesn't necessarily need to be parent. It could just be one person. I think this is where the struggle is around, how do we support? And again, I think we'll get more into that. But one of the things I have really learned from you is that support doesn't necessarily need to look like, again, some of those, I'll use catchphrases, I'll be honest, that people say, time heals all wounds. Right. And it's okay, you know what? There's light at the end of the tunnel. Because when someone's in grief, they're like, F off. Honestly.
Yeah. I could do a whole probably a series on the things people say. They're in a better place. Your parents are supposed to die first. There's some things. There's some things.
We'll get into it. And I mean, again, one of the things you've also shared is that recognizing that people are not ill-intended, right? But because we do not have honest and real conversations and are uncomfortable with grief and uncomfortable where people are at when they're grieving, that we shift, I think, into a space of let's be optimistic, give them love and light and let them know that things will be better. And maybe they will, but maybe for that person it won't. And that's okay, because it's also their journey. You know what I mean? And so for you, when we talk about grief, how did grief first show up, or how did you realize that maybe you were still actively in a state of grief or still grieving?
In the beginning, for sure, it was very much like I said, it hit me like a brick wall. When my mom died, I felt sick. I felt heavy. I was tired. There's this level of exhaustion that you didn't even know existed when somebody close to you dies. You're processing this pain that you've never felt before. And then there are pressures. Like you said, there's people telling you to be strong. How do I do that? There's, all of the other things that come at you in life. You have to keep working. If you're a mother, you have to keep mothering. If you're, you have friendships, you have life goes on around you, which is also really difficult because you're sitting in this space where you just want to scream, like your whole world has changed. Whether it's, the loss of a partner, a parent, a child, the loss is significant.
It's significant,
and everything else is moving around you as if nothing happened. So like processing all of that is exhausting. So, in the beginning, I was just like, how am I going to get better from this? I remember thinking, and I mean, the words maybe not appropriate, but I remember sitting in my apartment at the time thinking, this is how people go crazy. This is like this depth of this feeling is how people end up not being able to cope, not being able to work, not being able to maintain relationships. And like, you think it's just never going to get better. And then, as life goes on a little bit, you're sort of thinking, okay, like this feels right. And I'm still holding this space for grief. It's still here. The first of everything is difficult. The first holidays, the first birthdays, the first, like I said, I turned 30 the year my mom died. So it was just, everything was just nuts. And then I think it was like, you think you're doing better. And then it was when my dad died 6 years later. And so now I'm dealing with that, and also still realizing that I still am grieving the loss of my mother. Right. And then throughout that, unfortunately, a close friend of mine passed away. I had 2 cousins pass away. Like when you have a big family, it happens. When you have a small family, it happens. So, people will refer to those as triggers, but it's also layers. So, and then you hold on to the first loss, the second loss, and it just sort of stacks up. So it's not that and we'll talk about this later for sure, you don't heal from it. You don't get over it. You figure out how to fit it in.
I love that. And I think, again, there's many things about you that I admire, but I think one of the things, as I was prepping for today, I thought, you know what I've really admired about you is your openness. And I think that what has given people the I'll say the freedom or the safety to be like, you know what? However many years later, I'm still struggling. I'm still grieving. I'm still mourning the loss of someone that I love very deeply. I mean, my grandmother passed away 12 years ago. Sorry, 13, 12 years ago. And the experience doesn't feel as intense as it did 12 years ago, but it is in my head every single day. And even though she was in her 90s, like, again, it was like she was never going to live forever. But the depth of my relationship with her and who she was in my life, like you said, it's just become, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
And
like
it's missing.
And it's missing.
You recognize that it's missing and you notice that it's missing, right? And that's the thing too. Like, so thank you for saying that. And it is important to me to be open. And that is because, like I said, I recognized very early on, people aren't talking about this. And if we talked about death as if it's a part of life, it would be a lot easier for these conversations to come up, right? So that's what I found early on. I would be like, oh, my mom died and it was really hard and she died suddenly in a car accident. And people would be like, oof, sorry about that. And they'd move on to another conversation. Right. And so you realize, and even, I mean, I have family members who won't talk about death. My parents didn't have wills because they thought it was superstitious. Don't want to talk about it. It's too scary. But like then you're stuck as a 29-year-old trying to figure it out. Because nobody talked about it before. So that is, you said it, it's not funny, but instantly came to mind was like, again, West Indians, I'm going to go to my people. Like, oh, you know what? Things will work out. No, like there's also a realistic side post death. And I will say my mom is a nurse. She retired and then came back into palliative care. And she as well has been huge in reframing the power of death and removing this like stigma and discomfort. Because she's like, if you celebrate life, then you must celebrate death. And not in this like morbid way, but that it is a natural process of life. And watching her provide families with that care and understanding around like what that process looks like, I think has also
reframed and reshaped that conversation, which I think is also so important because there's a children's book that you have, which again, these conversations need to happen because children do experience loss, right? In many different ways, but lose parents, right? Lose family members, lose people in their life that they really care about. And when we don't have these open conversations, and allow people to also, you know, I mean, we talk about vibration, but just to exist in whatever state they're in, we create hardship, right? And we create discomfort, like you said, right? Saying, talking about your mom and people being like, oof. Yeah. What do I say, right?
Yeah. How do I make this better?
Yeah.
How do I make this more comfortable?
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is not on my thing of questions, but we'll get back to it. But so speaking of that, have you noticed that is people's shift or discomfort more because they don't know, I'll use you as an example, what to say to you, or because they themselves are uncomfortable and just want to kind of move through it? Or it could be a mix of both, but what's been your...
I think it's both for sure, because they're, you know, people generally, and maybe it's the people that I surround myself with, are fixers and helpers. So the first thing that comes is they want to fix it and make it better. And I learned that about myself too, because if I have somebody close to me who has a close person die, I always will say now, I wish I could fix this for you. Yeah. But now I know I can't.
Yes.
So people will try to add a silver lining.
Yeah.
You know, they were 90, they lived a good life.
Yeah.
People will say that, but it still sucks that they died.
Yes.
Like, I'm still in that place.
Yeah.
Great that they were 90, but I would have liked them to be around a little longer.
A little longer. Yeah.
So, you know, it's the adding of the silver lining, and that helps them feel more comfortable. And people, for sure. I mean, I'm an emotional person. You know this.
Yeah.
I'll cry.
Yeah.
And people don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
So it makes them uncomfortable, right? And I mean, we all have friends and people close to us who haven't been comfortable talking about feelings. So outside of happy and sad, they don't know what that even is in their bodies, right? So it is uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah. And I think this is also why I wanted to bring this topic in this audacious space, because I am really a proponent of all feelings must be experienced and shown. And exactly what you said, like, we definitely operate in an environment where we are happy when people are happy and they're thriving. And the moment someone hits a space in which we are uncomfortable with, it's like, okay, like you said, we offer the silver lining, like, it's okay, tomorrow's going to be a better day. And I know I do that. Like, I'm a very optimistic person, but I'm also someone who says, if you are in a space of negativity, or if you are not in a good place, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so in your journey, you know, what has grief taught you about yourself that perhaps joy or ease never could? If there was something.
Good question. Courage. I think I learned how to sort of be bold and for your word, audacious, and take space. And I think that, I mean, people will say you're brave for grieving, you're brave for surviving, you're, you know, took so much courage but the courage to take space and have these uncomfortable conversations. I don't think I would have known that I could do that. Yeah. Right. Until I found something to push, or until I didn't find it. It was, it was thrown at me to push me into that space where I'm going to say, I'm going to open this up and take space.
I love that. And something I do say, and I've said it before, and we've talked, you know, again, when we talk about ourselves, yes, we understand our strengths in this kind of linear perspective, but it's what is happening outside the lines that we have no control over, or things that happen to us where we gain a deeper understanding of self. And I love that again, courage, it probably wasn't that you doubted that you had the ability to, but in those moments, like you said, is where you have to tap deep into, like, okay, Sash, I'm either going to go this route or I'm going to go this route. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And it is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, again, we talk about this later, and I talk about it in my book. However you're doing it is normal. Yeah. If you can't get out of that heavy, where it sort of holds you down every day and you're sad and you're angry, that's normal. Yeah. If you continue with life carrying your grief, and there is joy, And there is, moments of laughter, and there is some positive aspects because your life is still happening, also okay and normal, right?
Thank you for yes.
That's why I do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because that is something that I have heard from people is around feeling guilty about experiencing joy while dealing with grief. Because again, I don't know if, and again, I would love to hear your perspective. Like, I don't know if there's pressure to feel like, again, now that you're in this depth of grief, are you supposed to sit in it? What, you know what I mean? Because there's no length of time. It's not like, oh, someone passed away. You're like, okay, so for the next 7 days and for the next week, you know what I mean? It really is personal, but. Yeah.
And that's what you expect. You're like, okay, in a couple months, I'll be better.
Yeah.
It'll all be better, but it doesn't get better.
Yeah.
You get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's pressures because again, people will say to you, oh, you're so strong. And then you're like, oh God, I have to stay strong. Like, what does strong look like? Do they, if they see me crying, am I a fake now? Or, and then I found this for me, even when I wrote these books, because I'm like talking to people saying, how to grieve, what it looks like, what I've learned. And there are still days that I'm a bit of a puddle on the ground because I hear a song that reminds me of my parents or I'm just tired and I wish they were there.
Yeah.
So it's just that message that it never really goes away. You just learn how to carry it.
Yeah.
But, and the pressures to like, people are like, oh God, she's still sad about it, or she's still talking about it. Or, and like you said, the reality is, we're all going to die. Yeah. All of our parents, all of our children at some point, and it's that's the tough reality people don't want to hear or talk about. Yeah. But we I don't know what I'm trying to say. It doesn't get better. Yeah. It doesn't get left behind or forgotten about. Right. Yeah. So the pressure to get over it makes it harder to open up for some people.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No. I thank you for that, because again, I think as I said, that's something that I've heard before, that people will then, like you said, curb, like they will base their emotion on what they feel people expect around them. So again, having someone say like, you're so strong and you're doing amazing, again, feeling that pressure, like, okay, so that means I got to keep it together. Like if I look like I'm crumbling, then everyone's going to think that I'm not moving forward. And it's like, no, you're going to ebb and flow. Yeah. And sure, you might be strong in this moment, but then you are also given the grace to not be strong. And also understanding strength looks different for different people. You know what I mean? But it's been very interesting and very powerful, especially again, having the opportunity to watch you in this space kind of break what I think is this narrative, or these almost like this structured process of what grief is supposed to look like, or what it's supposed to be, and how very, this is only my perspective, how very man-made it is. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that is just really because we are uncomfortable in these spaces to have hard conversations that are, again, that can be uncomfortable for some. And so, again, knowing you for so long, having watched your journey and just your own evolution, again, being a 2-time, 3-time, 4-time author at this point, which I think is amazing. How has your sense of purpose evolved as a result of what you've been through?
I think it's the books. What I've been through has created this space for me to help other people. So being able to take, the cliche, turn your pain into purpose. Yeah. I've been able to do that. Yeah. I've been able to take what I've learned, again, through conversations with others, but my own experience, and turned it into something that I could have used maybe in the beginning.
I love that.
Where like I said, I didn't know anybody who'd lost a parent. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know if what I felt was normal. And then as you start having these conversations with people, you realize, oh, it's normal that I felt guilty for going out last weekend, or normal that I feel so sad still years later. All of this is normal. So, but because nobody's talking about it, people don't know. Yeah. So when I was invited to write in She Grieves, I wrote, one chapter in that book, which was a beautiful book. 18 women shared our stories about grief and hope and how we got to where we are now, whether it was, one lady's story 30 years later after losing a close friend, my story of my parents, another lady whose child had died. The feedback we got from that was how validating it was, because you can read through these stories and sort of see your own journey, see yourself. You realize that you're like, oh God, good to know I'm not the only one, because that's what we want, right? As humans, we want to feel community. So then from that feedback, I was like, maybe we need more of this. Maybe I can create these books that you can say to somebody, I'm sorry you've lost somebody. That must be really tough. Here's a book that might help when you're ready. It's sort of, I call it a guide, but it's in the sense that it's whatever you're doing is normal.
Yes.
That's what people need to know. If you go back to work the next day because you need that distraction, and that's how you deal, that's great. If you get rid of all of your person's stuff out of the house because it's easier for you, that's great. If you hold on to it, that's great. Like your whatever works for you is normal.
I love that. I thank you for that, because again, from what I've seen, what I've experienced, certainly through people, again, I would say almost it's the outside circle of the individual who might be the most impacted, who again creates these rules of, like, you have to preserve the room. No, you got to get rid of the stuff. You need to go back to work. No, you should take 6 months off. You should, like, I'm going to be honest, like, leave people alone. Yeah. You know what I mean? If I can offer one message, again, Sasha Howell, leave people alone. Allow people to move at the pace that they need to. I am mindful that there are situations, again, when you know someone that you can see where they could be moving down a path that is dangerous.
Sure.
And we will certainly offer resources, at the end of this. That's a different story. But in general, like, just allow people to experience and move through the process how they need to.
Yeah.
So another question, that burning question, is, do you feel like you've become someone you might never have met if you weren't, or if you didn't experience this?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's there's a version of me sort of that I imagined growing up, what my life was going to look like. And right from the death of my mom, that changed. Yeah. And I mean, part of it is finding this space where I have something to help people. Maybe it would have been something else, but it wouldn't have been this. Yeah. And I think it's also created this wholesomeness in me, I think, and this authentic side of me where I decided to live. It was a decision. Decided to live with this as part of who I am now, and that makes me a kinder person. It makes me a more gentle person. It makes me a more honest person. Yeah. So it has definitely shaped who I am. Yeah.
And I love that what you just said, that you've taken it as part of who you are. Like, you have embedded it in your being, and if anything, have really used it to elevate not even just yourself from external, but I think, again, having the privilege of knowing you for so long, like, I always say to people, even when I like do coaching and things like that, there's a point in time when you realize someone is so grounded and affirmed in who they are, where they almost look like they're living life on this movator. So it's not like things aren't happening and there isn't disruption, but there's such a calm around their presence. And that's what I get from you, that you are just, you know what, like, life is going to bring what it's going to bring. But like, I am so affirmed and grounded in who I am that, like, I'm just going to take whatever I need to take, and I'm going to leave whatever it is that I need to leave.
Yeah, thanks. It's that exception piece, right? Accepting it, I think. And people have a hard time with that. I did, and I still do sometimes. You want things to be a certain way, but they're not always going to be.
Yeah. And I think I've also learned, like, sometimes the most powerful or impactful things that happen to you don't happen in like the most joyful ways. Right. That is again, I'm going to speak for myself. All the things that have shifted my mindset or that have brought me to this place did not happen necessarily in a joyful place. It has normally come from hardship, where I've had to be like, okay, so like you said, I got two choices. I'm either going to go this way or it's going to go that way.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. And of course, because this show is all about living with Audacity, what does Audacity mean to you now in the context of grief, healing, and who you continue to become?
I love this question. I love, and it took me a while because I knew you were going to ask this. It took me a while to think about what this looks like in the space of grief because it's not audacious to feel. It's audacious. I feel like it's the taking space and having uncomfortable conversations, right? I think that's where it comes in. I think that's where it comes in for people to go, ugh.
Yeah.
And then open up to it.
Yeah.
That's what I want people to do when I say, let's talk about death. Let's talk about how did you feel? How did you really feel?
Yeah.
And I think people are open to it when they have the permission to. But because society says it's not normal or it's not okay, it takes somebody like me or you who is comfortable with these conversations to open it up for people to finally let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that has been bold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is because it's changing a narrative. It is changing an expectation. It is changing an assumption around, again, how people are supposed to show up. And really the premise of this show is emancipating yourself from, again, these narratives and the way society says you need to be and act and look and talk and all those things. And grief is absolutely embedded in that because, again, there's just this pressure of how you're supposed to be. Are you crying enough? Are you not crying? It's wild.
Yeah.
It is wild, the things that I've heard. I'll be honest, people judge people who are grieving, and I'm like, shut up. Like,
yeah. And it comes back to even like social media. We can talk about social media.
Yeah.
It's good for some things. It's really not good. Compare and we judge and we, look at other people's lives and think what we would do is better and whatever. And we see these celebrities, for example, who have, somebody's died. Can I say names?
Yeah. Sure.
Twitch.
Yeah.
When Twitch died and his wife, Allison.
Yeah.
She carried on with her life because she had children to take care of.
Yeah.
And
the visceral
she
reaction.
got a new relationship and people were like, how could you?
Yeah.
Why are you not sad? Why do you look so good? Why have you carried on with your life? What was she supposed to do?
Yeah.
Right. And people will look at relatives and friends like that too. Like, how are you back to work? How are you not,
on the floor?
Just melting into the floor every day.
Yeah.
And, it comes back to people saying, oh, you're so strong. What was I supposed to do? Right? What would you have rathered me have done?
Yeah.
So, I think you're right. I like the word you used before, rule. It takes away the rules.
Of what grief looks like. All right. So kind of staying in that theme, how do you or how have you carry the memory of presence of what you've lost into the life that you're building now?
So, I mean, again, the books,
Yeah.
but in conversations that I have with people, and I've built this incredible community. I think as you start having these conversations with people and become your authentic self, I've been able to develop this like really great group of people around me, both with my workplace, my friendships, my family, people I've sort of chosen, and then people I've met through having these conversations around grief, right? And I think what was the second part of that question?
The second part was, how do you carry the memory or presence of what you've lost in your life in building what's coming now?
Right.
Yeah.
So all of these friendships, but also I haven't lost who my parents are. I haven't lost. So I bring them with me in everything that I do, and not in my pocket.
Yeah.
But like when we think about the holidays coming up, my mom was like a little Christmas elf.
Yes.
So I've sort my mom used to wear like little bells on her boots.
Okay. So like a legitimate elf. Okay, I love that.
So Christmas to me is a big deal. I want to carry that joy on for her, what she would have done. And she was a gift giver, and she was a helper. So I've chosen to be more involved in volunteering and helping people, right?
Yeah.
And especially around Christmas time, where sometimes it's hard for people.
Yeah.
So I want to fill that space with joy where I can.
Yeah.
My dad was a musician.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
But I love music.
Yes.
So I make sure it's a part of what I do, where I am, you know, how I function. So I've created this space for myself, but I've also made sure my parents are still a big part of it. Yeah.
You know what came to mind? I mean, poor Sash, she's about to be put on the spot. I was like, you know what? There's an upcoming workshop that needs to happen that you need to lead, Sash. And again, I say that because, again, I mean, obviously we talk. We don't necessarily like, it's not like Sash, we talk and have these deep conversations. It's normally funny, you know, superficial kind of things or related to other things. But again, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, God, what a gift it would be to give to someone, again, to be able to enter into a space where they just feel the freedom to just be and sit in grief, whatever that looks like, and be able to express themselves in a way to say, I am angry. I am, because again, like what just came to me is, again, when we talk about grief or when we hear grief, again, it's always related to sadness, which is a part of it. But there's anger, there's resentment, there's like all these other conversations, which again, from what I have witnessed in people in my life, they don't even have the freedom to be like, no, I'm pissed. I am pissed.
Mad.
And I've stayed mad.
And there's another one too that I'd like to touch on. Is around the feeling of relief. Because that is hard for people. Personally, I didn't. My parents both died suddenly. It was shocking. It wasn't. But if you've had a tough relationship with a person, or if you were a caregiver, and like if you know, eventually I think as a caregiver, you get into that mindset where if they're not going to get better, you're ready and they're ready for them to go. So there's relief that you feel. But I think people feel a lot of pressure to not really talk about that because you kind of sound like a monster. Or, you know, people will perceive you as like, how could you be happy? Or they, you know, they turn it into this other thing, and you can be sad and relieved at the same time. So I think, yes, having somewhere, I'd be honored to have something where people feel safe to feel what they feel.
I love that. I love that word also, relief. And removing the guilt associated with that, or the negativity, or implying as though you're just like, oh, thank God. But no, the relief around of knowing that someone that you loved is no longer in pain, is no longer struggling. And whoever was caregiving, I think about my grandfather passed away a few months ago, and it was, you know, towards the end of his life, it wasn't the quality of life that he would have wanted. And watching my grandmother care for him, and my mother and my cousin, who were very active in his caregiving, having to bear witness to his decline, and there being a bit, obviously, sadness in his passing, but relief to say, you know, he fought, but he doesn't have to. And that relief that my grandmother even being able to say, he is at peace, like, and I am grateful and relieved that he no longer has to be in this space, and that she herself doesn't have to experience that pain of watching her husband pass.
The person you knew isn't there anymore. So like I said, if they're not going to get better, you don't want to watch this go on for a long time. And it's hard. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many pieces to it when somebody dies. All of those feelings that come up that we've maybe never dealt with before. And that's what people are like, oh, I'd rather not think about it because it's too hard.
It's too much. Right? It's too much. Yeah, absolutely. And so again, for the people that are listening, for people that are watching this show, and I really do hope, like, not even just related to this podcast, but please follow Sasha. Please get her books. I will make sure that all the details of where you can follow Sash, where you can get these books. But again, for me, like, there's just so much knowledge and so much experience that you bring in this conversation, and really, again, easing someone in this process, and giving them, again, the tools and the knowledge and freedom to just experience what they're experiencing, I think is so powerful. And so what do you want people to know about grief that no one sometimes talks about enough?
I mean, we kind of just went through it, but I think the most important thing is to Ride the waves.
Ride the waves. I love that.
I think it really is around feeling what you feel and being authentic in that space and understanding that whatever it is normal. You don't have to pretend it's something for somebody else. You don't have to pretend it's something to make, yourself or others uncomfortable. I think if we all start to do that, it will become more comfortable. It will become a safer place. Yeah.
I love that. And if there's someone that is actively watching right now, is really struggling with loss, what would you gently offer to them?
I would say find your community. Find people who are understanding. Find people who will let you talk about it. I think it's important to talk about, what you're feeling and the people that are missing. So the people you've lost, say their names, say what they loved to do, share, their favorite coffee, food, whatever with somebody else. Like it just keeps the memory alive. Just because somebody's gone, it doesn't mean that we just,
we just close the door on.
So I think, and if you're sad, be sad. It's okay. So I think the main message is whatever you're doing it right.
I love that. And for you now, again, because, again, you are kind of not giving your journey, but again, really sharing your experiences. But what are you most proud of about how you've lived, loved, and risen through the hardest chapters of your life?
What am I most proud of? That I'm still here and able to talk about it and able to show up in spaces like what you've created to have these conversations. And I'm really proud that I can honestly say I've been able to help other people.
Yes.
I'm confident in that because I've had so many people tell me that I've helped them and, they've thanked me, and it's made their toughest part of their life maybe just a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So being able to take all the pain and the hell that I've gone through and be able to do that for somebody else has been a proud moment, and it's given me joy and more purpose, and it helps me too. Yeah.
Okay, I love that. And I mean, certainly, as I said, there's every time I connect with you, you're always like, Aish, I'm doing this. Aish, I'm doing this. Aish, do you have time for which I love, because again, I feel like my experience with you is that again, you've used this as momentum. Not that again you're not grieving, but you're like, okay, you know what? Again, there's a purpose. I've been given a gift, right? And I think your natural gift has always been to give. Like I think if again knowing you throughout this period, that's in your nature, and certainly the things that you've shared about who your parents were, it's inevitably innate. But what else is in store? Like what else is happening, Sasha? Because I know the little hamsters always. Sasha doesn't sit still. No. I mean, she's an avid gardener. That's also, that's not in the book, but like she is a gardener. Yeah. Maybe there's a gardening book coming up soon. But yeah, what is in store, Sasha? Like what's coming up? What do you?
Yeah. People have referred to me as a hobby hopper because I like to do so many different things.
But gardening, you've been very like as long as yeah.
And I like, I'm always staying busy. I love my job because I am a helper. I've learned that about myself, and it was tough for a while. It's sort of going outside of our conversation, but as you said, I'm an executive assistant. I've been an assistant, and often people will say to you, don't you want to, be the boss? Don't you want to get better? I like being an assistant because I'm a helper, and it helps people succeed. It helps, and it helps me. So in my personal life, I'm the same. I'm a helper. Like I said, I volunteer. I write books. I make space for people. I have an incredible group of friends. And I have written in another book. So I have, there's another book coming out in February, a collaborative book that I've been a part of. And the conversation's a bit different in that. So I talk more about grief in a different sense, not the traditional way. And I talk about sort of what I thought life was going to be like to versus over 40, how life is now. So So that's what's next. And then while I work in this space with grief and riding the waves, it's to have more conversations, to keep this going, to make my books available in very intentional spaces. Yeah. I want people to know they exist, to help themselves, to help someone they love. I'm happy to have conversations with people if they want to know sort of how I've done it, which maybe isn't right the whole time, but so just moving forward with more of that, I think. Yeah.
Stay tuned, guys. Listen, if I know, first of all, I didn't know there was another book. I love, okay, well, I'm hearing it for the first time, which I think is amazing. It is, again, I just have to talk about when you did She Grieves, like we talked about that. Literally, it might have been last year, Sash comes to me, she's like, Aish, can you write the foreword for my book? I'm writing 3. I was like, what? What the hell? Like, what the hell is happening? Which again, I say that with celebration because I love the way you are evolving and the way that you've shown up in your own audacity to be like, you know what, like you said, I'm going to take up space and I'm going to take up space in a place that is often taboo, that I think as a society, we really do keep hush, or we don't talk a lot about it, or again, we say it really quietly because we don't want other people to be triggered. It is a part of life. It's happening around us constantly. And I think we really do need to break that taboo because, again, it's connected to so many other things, our mental health, our emotional well-being, our psychological well-being, our physical state of well-being. And if we can celebrate when someone is in their high, then we also have to be able to give grace and create space when people are not, on that high as well. It's so important.
Yeah.
Okay. And so before we bring things to what is there any last one gem drop, any one thing you want to share? As I said, I'm going to share all of her handles where you can get her book, all the things, but any last words that you want to offer to anyone on anything?
I mean, nothing more than I've already said. I think, find space. If you're feeling sad, if you're feeling happy, just have those conversations with people, bring the memories forward, and be you.
Yeah. Be your audacious self. And what I will say is if you are grieving right now, take a breath, right? Sit in it. Again, if you are looking for someone to connect with Sasha. Again, I will provide all of the details of where you can find her. Sometimes the people we need to connect with are not the people that are in our immediate circle. Sometimes we actually need someone that understands and has lived through it, but isn't connected to us. Sometimes there's great value in that space as well.
And if I can just add something, sometimes the reason why we don't connect so much with the people who are close in our lives is because we're also trying to protect them.
Yes.
And I went through that. I didn't want to make people really sad. I didn't want to make people feel bad for me or worried about me. So I did find talking to people sort of outside of that circle helped a bit more. A therapist can come in handy because you don't feel like you need to protect them.
Yeah.
So if you find that you are that type of person where you're protecting the people around you, you don't want them to be sad, find somebody like me, or I can help find other people. Instagram's great. Look up a hashtag around grief. You'll find people who are open to talking about it. Yeah. And then you can release it a little bit easier.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. No, absolutely. And we will include resources again along with this book, but again, individuals who may be struggling. We are located in Ontario, so I mean the resources that we will be providing will be within the context of Ontario, but there are certainly ways that you can find information if you are grieving, if you are dealing with loss, if there is someone that you know who is struggling. So we'll be providing that. Sash, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for joining the podcast. I want to thank you for just showing up in all the ways that you do. I want to thank you for, I sound like Snoop Dogg now. I want to thank me.
I want
to thank me. But I do. I want to thank you for creating comfort and reducing stigma and for shining a light on a conversation that is a part of life. And I realize that, again, it can be uncomfortable, but the reality is like we all deal with it or will deal with it. And so I just thank you for sharing your gift with me and sharing your gift with others. This has been another episode of Living with Audacity. I want to wish you well. And again, please make sure you follow Sash. All right. Wishing you everyone a great day, great week. Whenever you're watching this, stay audacious, stay cute, stay authentic and unapologetic.